Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Saturday afternoon. Some massive news for Kirby Smart. The Georgia Bulldogs coming out of the recruiting trail. Four-star defensive back Jontae Gilbert committing to this Georgia program. I think where you want to start with Jontae Gilbert. This kid is incredibly versatile in the back end of this defense. You take a look at the film of Jontae Gilbert. You see him play boundary cornerback. You see him play that nickel role. You see him play as a safety. And you take a look at the film and say, yeah, I could see this kid playing every single position in the back end of this Georgia defense. And why does that matter? Kind of going back to the conversation we seem to always have with Georgia. They get guys that aren't only good football players, but they get guys that fit what they want to do on both sides of the football. Georgia wants to give a lot of different looks, move their guys around the defensive backfield. Having a guy like Jontae Gilbert who could play that center field safety, could come up and play that star position, that matters. I think that fits exactly what Georgia wants to do. When you talk about getting your best 5-6 guys on the football field in the defensive backfield, Jontae Gilbert's going to help you do that because of the versatility that he brings to this Georgia defense. Really excited to get into the film, talk about what he brings to this Georgia defense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and kind of capping off the summer with a few late commitments. Just want to say thank you to you guys and all the support y'all have shown as we've covered the recruiting trail all summer long. The Georgia fans, you guys have shown a ton of love. I appreciate it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. And without further ado, let's get into Jontae Gilbert. Kind of a fascinating recruiting battle where for a while it sounded like he was heading to Clemson. You always kind of get the feeling that Georgia wasn't going to let him out of state. And we've seen this happen plenty of times where guys start trending out of state and then Kirby Smart turns it up, ends up landing the commitment. Kind of similar with what happened here. You look at Jontae Gilbert now, talk about the football player. I think you start with just being a box checker, right? He has a very good frame at 6'1", 185, extremely long. And that matters when you're playing the defensive backfield, specifically that cornerback position. Do you have the length to put your hands on wide receivers, impact them off the line of scrimmage? I think Jontae Gilbert has that ability, but I think more importantly, he's a phenomenal tackler. This is a kid that is put together for a kid going into his senior year of high school. He's not afraid to come downhill and be physical at the point of attack, which makes me think that star position might be the landing spot, if you will, for Jontae Gilbert. I think this is going to be one of the more exciting prospects to follow in terms of where Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann decide to put Jontae Gilbert. Because, again, I think he could play about every single position in the defensive backfield. Now it's about getting that idea of where does he fit best and where does he fit best within the other talent that's around this Georgia secondary. We'll get into the film. We'll kind of talk about different things we like about Jontae Gilbert. Some really good reps as a boundary cornerback. And again, you see the length. Couple of things you'll like about this first rep. One, putting hands on some wide receivers, but more importantly, we're going to just squeeze you right out. And this is how you want it to look. Like if you freeze frame this, just squeezing and running that wide receiver right to the boundary, that is textbook from Jontae Gilbert. And he seems very comfortable doing it. You continue to roll this play, following the football. When that football's in the air, he's one of those defensive backs that always seems to be around the football. Nice little coordination there. 2 feet in, would count in the NFL. Love to see it. You continue to burn through the film. You see a lot of different things, kind of working at that star-ish position here, getting sent in motion. This is why I like him at that star spot, because this is hard to find in defensive back. You see a lot of long athletes that can operate in coverage. What separates those guys that we want at the star position? That ability to come up to the tackle box, go sideline to sideline, and be a force in the run game. Take a look at this little end of round one, sideline to sideline speed. Love to see that. Secondly, hey, we're just going to work through traffic, and we're going to go meet the ball carrier in the backfield. I mean, this is textbook stuff from Jontae Gilbert. Very, very comfortable operating around the line of scrimmage, which kind of makes me think he could play that star role for this Georgia program. You continue to work through the film, and again, just a lot of other stuff. You talk about star, you talk about the feel for coming after the quarterback. This is something that you don't see from a ton of kids at the high school level. Jontae Gilbert has that feel. And coming off the edge, screaming off the edge, closing the distance between himself and the quarterback, helping the quarterback up at the end of the play. Now you're seeing him play some boundary corner. Really like how he operates in zone coverage. And, hey, we're going to close distance and go make a play on the football. He moves all along this defensive backfield and just seems to do it at such a high level. Can get it done from a lot of different spots. You obviously see some offensive playmaking too, which I think is important. we talk about this a lot. I love the cornerbacks or defensive backs, I would say, to have some sort of experience playing wide receiver because then you know they can play the football in the air. There's a lot of defensive backs that just panic and don't play the football. Having that wide receiver background, it just makes you feel a little bit more comfortable when that football is in the air. Continue to work through the film. Again, a little press man here. You love to see it. Putting hands on the opposing wide receiver, just jamming them off the line of scrimmage. Like that play, when you get in like man coverage with no safety over top on the boundary screen, that play should probably go for 20-plus yards. Jontae Gilbert just too physical, and you love to see it. Again, working as a wide receiver, good ball skills, tracks the ball routinely, runs track and field, don't have any verified track times on him, but you kind of get the sense that the long speed's not a problem. Again, so we like the reps as a star, but there is such good film as a boundary cornerback too. I mean, this is textbook. I'm going to squeeze this wide receiver right to the sideline. Really no throwing window for the quarterback. It doesn't get any better than that. And so you look at Jontae Gilbert and say he could really play a lot of different positions for this Georgia program during his next couple of years in Athens, Georgia. Taking a look up at what Georgia's doing in the 2025 cycle, specifically in that defensive back room, you have Shamari Earls, who is one of my favorite cornerbacks in the 2025 class. As a Michigan fan, was hoping he'd wind up in Ann Arbor. That's a really good get. That kid's freaky length, freaky speed. Shamari Earls is going to be very good as a boundary cornerback. You got some really intriguing guys like Todd Robinson, who plays primarily on the offensive side of the football, but going to play in that defensive backfield, maybe that star position, maybe that safety position. Again, Georgia's acquiring guys that kind of fit what they look for, right? At the cornerback spot, we're getting guys like Shamari Earls, who are long, fast, physical. And then in the back end, we're getting guys that are versatile, that can play around the line of scrimmage, that can play in the back end. As usual, big fans of what Georgia's doing in this 2025 class. We expect either Justice Terry or Elijah Griffin to wind up in Athens, probably both. That's going to put them as a top 2 class in the country. You look up, it's clockwork. Georgia's putting in really good recruiting classes. Big fan of Jontae Gilbert. Big fan of the fit in Athens, Georgia. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.